Good evening. A few words today from Russian President Putin seem to ease world tensions over Ukraine, at least temporarily, and at least enough for the financial markets to recover. After taking control of Ukraine's Crimea region, Putin said Russia has no intention of fighting the Ukrainian people or annexing Crimea, but he reserved the right to use force to protect ethnic Russians who live in eastern Ukraine. In Kiev today, the Ukrainian capital, Secretary of State John Kerry honored protesters killed last month. Those protesters drove Ukraine's pro-Moscow president Viktor Yanukovych from power, and that is what triggered Putin's invasion. Also today, the Russians test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile in southern Russia. Elizabeth Palmer reports from Crimea that Russian forces there fired warning shots at unarmed Ukrainian soldiers.
It was part military maneuver, part exercise in national pride. Ukrainian soldiers from Belbek Air Base set out to demand the Russian occupying forces give them back their weapons. Instead, the Russians ordered them to halt, and then fired what may be the first shots since this invasion began. But it didn't last long, and the Ukrainians eventually returned to base empty-handed. To hear Vladimir Putin tell it, though, there is no tension at all between the two armies. They're brothers in arms, friends, he said. I'm convinced that Russia and Ukrainian forces will stand together. Maybe he hasn't seen these pictures of Ukrainian soldiers barricaded in their bases and on Navy ships refusing to surrender to the Russians. And for the first time today, civilians in the capital, Simferopol, found the courage to speak up, too, against Putin. But almost immediately, pro-Russian demonstrators came to drown them out. This invasion has divided and destabilized Crimea. In a military housing complex, a soldier's wife was telling us the Ukrainians should have fought off the Russians when her neighbor interrupted, furious, convinced there would be chaos without them. Putin today described his invasion as a humanitarian mission with no ambition to conquer. We put that to some Russian soldiers outside a Ukrainian base.
Are you allowing the Ukrainian army to go back and forth freely?
They told us to stop asking questions and go away. Judging by their camp, though, they are all ready for a long stay.
Liz Palmer is joining us from Crimea this evening. Liz, Vladimir Putin has said that it would be an extreme step for him to move into the rest of eastern Ukraine, although he's willing to do it. What are you seeing there?
Well, he said that it's not necessary at the moment, but went on to add that if there was lawlessness, as he put it, in those areas, he reserved the right to use all options. Now, we know that there are big pro-Russian demonstrations planned for those areas tomorrow, so if he's looking for justification, he's sure to find it.
Elizabeth Palmer covering for us in Crimea. Thanks, Liz.